On your tables this morning are a couple of resources we'd like to make available to you. The one I mentioned yesterday, The Truth About Money Lies, there's one of each for each couple. And then there's some tables that don't have 5 people at them or 5 couples, so go around to the tables, take them for your kids, your adult grandkids, or your children. We don't want to take them back, okay? So just take them and do something with them. But then The Truth About Money Lies, and then the book, Your Life Well Spent, which I'll be talking about tomorrow morning. So just wanted to make sure you knew those resources were available to you there. And as I said yesterday, I'm a former teacher, so there's work for you to do. There's a handout, so let's everybody grab your handout and a pen. I'm glad there's pens there. As I said yesterday, we want this morning to go a little deeper into this area of giving. And so I've entitled this talk, Conveyance. We have a guy in our firm who likes to use big words, so rather than calling the talk giving, I decided I'd call it conveyance. It just sounds a little more cachet, right? So, but as we'll see in a minute, conveyance is really at the heart of the word giving. But we want to start by looking at this verse, and I've written it out for you. If you feel better, open up your Bible and looking at it. This is a Bible teaching time. Rather than reading off a sheet of paper, you can do that. But it's 1 Timothy 6:17 to 19. It says, "Instruct those who are rich in this present world not to be conceited or to fix their hope on the uncertainty of riches, but on God who richly supplies us with all things to enjoy. Instruct them to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous, to be ready to share, storing up for themselves a solid foundation for the future, so they may take hold of that which is life indeed." So you have that written there in front of you. I want you to, first of all, circle the word why. I don't know if you know what the word why means, but why is the cause, reason, or purpose for something. So it's incumbent upon all of us to say, what is my cause, reason, or purpose for being? And I would say to you that one of the reasons for your and my existence is to be generous. We see that in this verse. Remember yesterday I said that in the wisdom for your life, you need to be purposeful and generous. Well, this is the second part of that. I think we exist. One of the reasons for our existence, the cause, reason, or purpose for our existence is to be generous. So that's what I think we need to understand as we start here. Now circle the word rich, because many people read this verse in their Bible and then they just skip over it because they conclude that's not to them. Because rich is a comparative word, and we always think that other people are rich and I'm not rich. Because no matter how much you have, you think the person that has more is rich. But let's agree right off that the definition of rich is to have more than you need. So I would say this verse applies to every one of us in this room because we all have more than we need. Some of you worried this morning about what pair of shoes to wear. Some of you worried about, did you bring enough clothes? Some of you worried coming up here which car to drive or which airline to fly. Some of you worry, when you can't put drinking water on your yards when there's a drought. These are all rich people problems, right? So let's agree right off that this passage is to us. So it's speaking to all of us because we're rich. We have more than we need. And then another word I want you to circle is the word uncertainty. This is interesting. We all act surprised when the economic environment we're in changes and the markets go up and down and all of a sudden what I thought was certain is not certain. Well, God already told us that riches are uncertain. So let's just get it in our minds right now that the thing that I think is solid isn't. And we're told that right here. So riches are uncertain. So what are we as rich people supposed to do? We're supposed to be rich in good works, underline that, and generous, ready to share. And as a result, we will then store up treasures in heaven. And we're going to unpack that. So as I was thinking about the idea of giving, you see the definition of giving there. It's to convey to another, to transfer. I thought, what is the opposite of giving? Well, the opposite of giving is to keep. And look at what keep means: to hold, to retain in our possession, to maintain, not to lose or part with, to protect, guard, and preserve. And look at some of the deeper definitions of those words: to defend, to secure against loss, to keep safe in safety, to make secure, to keep in the same state, Don't we try to do that with our bodies? We try to preserve our bodies, right? We just went past the first of the year. We all set these New Year's resolutions to stay in shape. How's that working for you? You know, are you really preserving it? No. The second law of thermodynamics is absolutely true. Everything is running down. Secure to free from danger, safe, certain, and sure. And as I thought about the definition of keep, it dawned on me, it's the height of arrogance to actually think I can keep it. And then we read in Scriptures in Matthew 6, what's it say to us? That if you try to keep it here, moth and rust will destroy and thieves will break in and steal. What did the children of Israel do back in Exodus 16? They thought they'd try to just keep a little extra for the next day, and what happened is it rotted. So you might want to write down those words: moth, rust, thieves, rot. See, the Scripture's clear. In Luke 17, it says, you try to keep your life, you'll lose it, but if you lose it for my sake, you'll gain it. God's economy is the opposite. And so I just want to say to us as we start off on this discussion of conveyance that keeping is not a smart idea, because we really can't keep it. As we'll see as we go on, the real question is not how much we give. The real question is how much we should even try to keep, because we really can't keep it. Now, let's think about let's think about keep. How many of you have little kids or grandkids, or, you know, what do they do when they get something? They do this, right? It's mine. They do this and they try to keep it. Now, how would you describe their actions when they do that? Selfish? It's kind of ugly, isn't it? This idea that's mine, I'm going to keep it, that's ugly. And I think we need to get that visual in our mind, because that's just the way we are before God when we say, we're going to keep it. God, you've entrusted this to me, but it's mine. I'm going to keep it. And we'll see in a minute, that's the beauty of giving, is it hopefully starts getting our hands off of it. You know, I brought me a little prop here as we talk about keeping. You probably all wondered why I brought a bear. Somebody said, where's the bull? I said, that's not the illustration. I'm not doing a bear and bull thing here. My mom's a little over 80 years old, and she's been sewing for over 60 years, and she makes bears. And she has just hundreds of them everywhere all over the house. And I love my mom to death. And she sent a letter to us here a while back and says, you know, I've got all these bears all over the house, just hundreds of them, and you know, I don't know what to do with them. And so my lovely bride, Julie, says, hey, I think I got an idea for your mom. Why don't your mom make these bears, send them to the grandkids and daughters-in-laws and stuff, and let them give them to people, and you know, rest homes or children's homes, or just to bless somebody with, and have a 3x5 card on them. And then those people that are blessed by one of the bears can send a 3x5 card back to my mom and say, hey, here's my name, and this was really, really blessed me. So that's a great idea. So I called my mom and said, hey, Mom, Julie had a great idea. Why don't you just give the bears out and let people distribute them, and then you'd be blessed as you receive these little thank you cards back from people. She goes, well, who's going to pay me for the bears? And then I said, well, so I tried to re-explain it and tell her what I was thinking. And I said, well, just, you know, like you could give Julie some, and she'd distribute them out and do 3x5 cards. She goes, well, how much is Julie going to pay me? And it broke my heart, because she doesn't grasp the beauty and the extravagance and the joy that comes from giving. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to help her get there, but I use that as an illustration because that's the choice we have. Are we going to be extravagant givers that just love to give and get joy from it, or are we going to always think we have to have something in return? So keep those two visuals in your mind as you think about this idea of how ugly keeping is, and how not having an extravagant, generous heart, what that looks like. Because it is a lot of fun to be able to give. So let's look then at why do you give. So I know some of you are anal, so I'm going to try to make sure you can fill out each line, okay? You may come up and try to find me afterwards if you don't fill it out. So the first one is, it's a tangible way to acknowledge God's ownership. And I don't have time to read all the verses, but let's just agree up front that you only have what you have because of God's blessing to you. Deuteronomy 8. You think it's your ability to make wealth? No, I, the Lord, have given you the ability to make wealth. So simply put, we give to acknowledge His ownership. He's the one that's blessed us with what we've been entrusted with. It wasn't by my great moxie or my great skill or my great ability that I have what I have. It's simply God's blessing to me, and I'm called to be a steward of it. And Abraham understood this. You look over in Hebrews 11. He lived as an alien. You might want to write that word down out there. I think if we think more like an alien and a sojourner, this idea of being generous gets elevated. It's when we start thinking this is our home and that we own stuff that we get kind of trapped. And so the first thing about giving is it's a tangible way to acknowledge God's ownership. And you might want to just write the word stewardship there. That's the stewardship verse. You were bought with a price, so you're not even your own. See, God owns you as well as the assets and the resources that you have. Number two, it's a tangible way to worship and show gratitude. You know, there's nothing more fun than being able to bless and to give out of a heart of gratitude. And remember that your checkbook is a barometer of where you are on this. You can fake a lot of areas in the Christian life, but that's the thing about money. You give me your checkbook and I can tell where your priorities really are. I can tell what your lifestyle is. I can tell really how important giving is to you. I can tell how important your family is to you. You can fake Bible study and you can fake prayer, but you don't fake with your money. So just give me your checkbook, and it's a barometer of really where your heart is. And giving is an attitude of gratitude, and it shows gratitude to God for what He's done. Number three, we already read 1 Timothy 6, but it's commanded by God. Some translations use the word command those who are rich rather than instruct those who are rich. It's commanded by God, and it displays trust and obedience. But like I said yesterday, unfortunately, many times we say we believe God, but we trust in our money. And the way we know that is how we react when the money changes on us. Okay, and write down another verse, Proverbs 11:28, because this just nails it. He who trusts in his riches will fail. That's a futile thing to trust in. Fact is, Proverbs 18:10-11 says, the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and are safe. A rich man's wealth is his strong city, and like a high wall in his own imagination. So the problem with riches is the temptation is to make that our high wall, make that our source of refuge, and that's just a joke in our imagination because it's not secure. Number four, it meets the needs of others. In 2 Corinthians 9, it says that you've been enriched in order to be liberal. You have to meet the needs of those who don't have. And one of the things that Julie and I have started doing, and I don't know if you've maybe read the book called The God Pocket by Bruce Wilkinson, but even before I found the book, we started doing this. About 20% of what we give is non-deductible. And the reason we do that is we want to have our antenna up to meet needs and just be able, so we carry money on our person. It's called the God Pocket that's already given away. I'm just waiting for God to prompt me as to where to give it. And so whether it's, that waitress at the restaurant or somebody helping you with your bags at the airport or you name it, the guy behind the counter at the grocery store, you wait for God's prompt to meet that needs because there's needs all around you. And I tell you, this has been one of the most freeing, revolutionary things for us in our giving is this whole idea of it's already given. Now, God, you just prompt me as to who needs to receive this. So you might want to consider that as an action step. I know it's important, and we recommend trying to make as much of your giving as possible tax deductible. That's good stewardship. But there's just some needs out there, paying somebody's rent, you name it, where if you've already in your mind given the money away, because it's God's money and you've already given it away, you're just waiting for Him to prompt you, it's kind of a neat thing. So I would encourage you, this whole idea of meeting needs is a lot of fun. The fifth thing there is it results in reward. And I don't know where Don is here, but I tell you, he nailed it last night. Don, thank you for sharing what you shared. Because you don't give to get, but the Bible is very clear, and you see the passages there, that you are storing up treasures in heaven. There are going to be rewards. There are going to be people that come up to you and say thank you for giving. One of my clients years ago said, Russ, your name is going to be embossed next to mine on that check in heaven. I don't want to ever have anybody come to me and say, why didn't you tell me that there was a better return, that there was a better place to put it? Why didn't you tell me this? See, I think as we go through these, I've been telling people this lately, you should be more concerned not about whether you're earning 5% or 10% or 15% in the market. You should be more concerned about what you're going to tell the Creator God of the universe about why you had what you had in the market in the first place anyway. That's the real question. See, because here again, that's a rich person problem. The only reason you have investments is because you have excess. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have investments. But the issue is there are rewards, and you need to send it on ahead. So Don, thank you for that eloquent testimony last night. That was just really incredible, and I would encourage each of you to really wrestle with that whole issue of the fact that sending it on ahead, there are eternal rewards. The last point there deals with the fact that it breaks the power of money, and you notice in parentheses it's the only antidote. It is the absolute only antidote to get money off the throne of our life and put God in his rightful place. Because we see that in Luke 16. It says you cannot serve God and money. It doesn't say God and, prestige or God and power. It says God and money, because money is that one thing that can replace God in our lives. And I want to unpack this a little bit. See, here's the problem with wealth. Here's what the power of money does. It has the power to distract us. It distracts us from what's really important in life. You have the second home or the third home or the fourth home, and I'm not against those things. But the more you have, the more riches you have, the easier it is to get distracted. We see a lot of people in our sphere, Julie and I, that they've gotten out of the church community because they're gone on the weekends to their second home. Nothing wrong with that, but only they've thought through what's the biggest long-term benefit here. Here's another interesting thing about the power of money. It leads to pride. Isn't it interesting that when people have wealth, we think they know stuff about everything? We think they're an expert in everything just because they happen to be blessed by God to have wealth. We think they have wisdom in other areas. Not necessarily true. So money has the power to make us prideful. We already mentioned it's a strong tower. And here's an interesting thing. Money has the potential to make you more mean. They did a study. Does money make you mean? Paul Piff and his researchers spent 7 years looking at the effect of wealth on individuals. They rigged a monopoly game. So this is a rigged monopoly game, whereby at the flip of a coin, one person was rich and the other person was poor. One could buy up everything and the other had very little. Interestingly enough, the rich talked about what they had done to be so adept at the game of Monopoly. This is a rigged game, right? It was a flip of a coin to determine what they had. They also determined after 7 years of research that as wealth went up, compassion and empathy went down, and the idea of entitlement and self-interest went up. The implications of this self-interest were they were less likely to be generous and help folks. They were more likely to cheat. They were more inclined to break the law and to lie in negotiations. They were more likely to be mean. They found in their research, this was a secular study, that the only thing that made these people more egalitarian and to do things a little better was when they gave. Giving made them a better person. So, money has the potential to really sit there on the throne and mess us up, and giving is the only antidote. Because giving, you've seen the illustration, you hold it like this or you give. Giving breaks the power of money. It gets it off the throne of your life. And let me just encourage you that that's a tremendous benefit of giving. So now I want to be a little transparent and flip over the page, because now it gets interesting. So how much do you give? My history of giving was, I grew up in a family where you put a few dollars in the plate as it went by. then, like I said yesterday, I married Julie and ended up with all these crusade people I supported, so it was forced giving, at a different amount. But then as I began to understand the scriptures and worked in this business all these years, I began to realize how important giving was for the reasons we just talked about. And so I've been grappling with this question of how much. And you'll notice down there I've put in bold, according to your ability. And that's gang, where it gets personal. The New Testament says that we're to give according to our ability. What the heck does that mean? What does that mean? We wish it said give a tithe. We wish it said give 3 times the tithe. We just wish it would tell us. But it doesn't tell us. So as Julie and I have grappled with this over the years, it's like, okay, what in the world does this mean? How much should my net worth grow? And how do I give? And how do I do this? Let me give you one place to start. You notice I've highlighted anything but the tithe. Anything but the tithe. I've got an interesting quote here from a guy. The tithe can become an idol to set upon a pedestal to admire. It is often a dangerously tempting resting place rather than a minimum starting point. Much of the Christian community thinks of tithing as a high and lofty perch that only a few radicals have reached after years of struggle, rather than seeing it at the bottom or beginning place. So I would say to us, first of all, anything but the tithe, because the problem with the tithe is we think that's God's and the rest is mine, and we already see in the New Testament we're to give as we've been prospered. And the only place the tithe is used is when Jesus was calling out the Pharisees for their hypocrisy. So the New Testament does not tell us to do the tithe. And so the tension that I want to challenge you with is, see, I should have given you a chance to leave now before I got to this part. But I want you to struggle with the same challenge Julie and I are in. So we're sitting here saying, okay, we're to give as we've been prospered, give according to our ability. We have more than we need. So one year Julie said, let's just give away all of our margin. I'm going like, where's that going to come from? Well, you got that money sitting on in the bank, just give that away. And so we've been grappling with this for years. We've gradually increased our giving, so the goal a couple years ago was get our giving equal to our living. Okay, that's a good step. And I don't know what it is for you. I'm just being transparent that the issue here is we got to wrestle with that mandate there. Give according to your ability. So I thought, okay, I found these verses, right, on excess. Eat only what you need, that you will not have excess. And, back over in Exodus, you're not to have excess. So I thought, I'm going to look up excess, and that'll help me define this. Well, that didn't help me at all. If you read the definition of excess, it's still a comparative thing. What's excess for you or extravagance for you or wasteful for you may not be for somebody else. That's what makes this so challenging. Just like lifestyle is so challenging. The Bible doesn't tell us. The Bible doesn't tell us. Now, what John Wesley did, as you know, is he gave away all extra income once the family and creditors were taken care of. He believed that with increasing income, the Christian standard of giving should increase, not his standard of living. When his income rose into the thousands of pounds, he lived simply and gave away his surplus money quickly. One year, his income was slightly over $4.7 million. I transposed or translated it. He gave it all away except $100,000. He was afraid of laying up treasures on earth, so the money went out as quickly as it came in. He says, when I die, if I leave behind 10 pounds, you and all mankind can bear witness against me that I lived and died a thief and a robber. So he had the idea, and he grappled with it. And Julie and I aren't quite there yet, okay? I can't say I'm like John Wesley, but God's got us in the throes right now of continuing to try to wrestle with this. This is why if you don't make much money, tell your kids, if you don't make much, it's easier. Because you provide for your family, you pay your taxes, you give to acknowledge God's ownership. Maybe you start with that tithe, and if there's nothing left over, you don't have to struggle with it. It's those that have excess, that they have more than they need, that they have an excess cash flow margin, or they have excess assets growing, or their business is growing. That's where it gets tough. And let me just also say to you that the biggest challenge you have is that most wealth is created in non-liquid assets. And so to give according to your ability will require you to think outside the dots. I've seen it for years. People's businesses are growing millions of dollars a year, and they're taking out a $200,000 salary and giving $20,000 or $50,000 and feel like they're doing good, and all the while their net worth is growing. I remember I helped one of my clients. I said, hey, if you're going to give according to your ability, you've got to give away some of this business. Because you don't want to get to the end of the life and have God say, hey, what'd you do with what I gave you? Well, but it was all non-liquid. I couldn't give it. Yes, you can. This is why it gets tough, gang. And I don't know the answer to this question, but I wanted to share it with you that I think we need to struggle. And then really the question is, how much should I be keeping? And we know you got to provide for your family, and you know, life expectancy is longer, but guess what? You can figure all that stuff out. But then I would say there's a faith element. That's been shared quite a lot here over the last 2 days. You know, what's it going to take for you to step out by faith? I'm not even talking about sacrificial giving. See, it's tough for rich people to give sacrificially because you can give a lot and still not have it affect your lifestyle or anything. So I don't even want to go there. I only have 4 minutes, so I'm not going there to talk about this whole issue of sacrifice, because what does that mean? How do I really sacrifice? So I just want to challenge all of us with the fact, and you got some blanks there at the bottom, that I think it's smart to be extravagantly generous, not stupid. It's smart, not stupid. Because think about it this way. If you went on a trip overseas, one of our guys went over to Spain last May, and he spent 2 weeks there, and when Kurt was over there, if he would have bought a bunch of paintings and cars and carpet and fixed up his hotel room, what would we have thought of him? If he had gone over there and done that? He's only going to be there for 2 weeks. If he'd gone over there and spent a lot of money and stored up all this stuff, we would have thought he was stupid. Because that's stupid. Why? Because that's not his home. This isn't our home. So we're pretty stupid if we keep trying to store it up here. So we have to try to figure out, all right, what's the least amount I need to kind of have to do stuff here, and then I need to put it where it's going to matter. And then the other 2 words to contrast, remember I said yesterday, wisdom is the application of knowledge. See, when you do 1 Timothy 6, 17 and 19, you're exhibiting wisdom. When you are generous, ready to share, storing up for yourselves a solid foundation for the future. Because the great passage that contrasts 1 Timothy is over in Luke 12, and you remember that story, right? What did that farmer do? That farmer said, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to build bigger barns. And I'm going to store all this stuff up. And what was he called? He was called a fool. He was called a fool because he was not rich towards God. So, ladies and gentlemen, do you want to be wise or do you want to be a fool? Wisdom says, I'm going to try to be as extravagantly generous as I can because I understand what's going on here. I have wisdom, the application of God's word. I understand it. Or I'm going to try to keep it. I'm going to try to hold it. I'm going to try to keep it here and have more. And then I would be called a fool. I don't know what the answer is for you. I do know from 30 years of experience, though, that we can probably all give a little more than we're giving, and we probably all should. Those times that Julie challenged me to kind of get out of my comfort zone and kind of take a step of faith and maybe give away my margin or give away a number way bigger than I thought. And like I said, Don, what you shared last night was incredible because it will take a step of faith. But that's maybe what we have to do because we are rich people. And we've been instructed very clearly what we're to do. And we're also instructed very clearly that this stuff we're thinking is secure is not secure. And I'll close with this, that famous quote by Jim Elliot. He is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. So I'm glad you stayed. Now you have to struggle with this as you go through the day and think about what you're going to do relative to the Jesus film. But I would just encourage you to think about what's God asking you to do.